Can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear, unknown light warrior, and we are live. We are live on my end. All is well.
Fantastic. We're about to go live on my end in 18 seconds.
Okay, good sir.
And then I'll let you know. When to come on after I do the introductions.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So here we go.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Crew Command Radio. This week we discussed the most important thing to watch out for and be very aware of, with things like the recent split between Trump, European leaders, and NATO representatives of the cabal. We're going to get into some more details about the elites really starting to panic now as the White Hat factions within the government and the agencies and the Pentagon start aggressively dumping intel, mainly through their media representatives like InfoWars and Zero Hedge. That is the Democrat staffer Seth Rich, who was a source of Hillary Clinton's email leaks, hence her election loss, not the Russians. And the whole Russian story really begins to collapse now, poised to come tumbling down. We had Joe Lieberman blocked from becoming the FBI director. That's basically the negative factions of the cabal trying to get their man or woman into that top job. And of course, tonight we have special guest Derek Dunlap of I'm Conscious Now What Radio, and he'll be on Ground Crew Command tonight at the same time to discuss what is the #1 goal of all light workers and the conscious portion of the surface population of all persuasions at this time. That's tonight on Ground Crew Command Radio. This is the Unknown Light Warrior.
Peace and love, family. Welcome to a double episode. We're live. Testing. I'm conscious now. What? Fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. This will be epic.
And welcome to this week's show of Ground Crew Command Radio. So those are the news headlines that we're going to bring a lot of critical and important perspectives, a very in-depth understanding of what's really going on behind the scenes, because things may not be the way they seem to be with the public or overt displays of, shall we say, clashes or splits between Trump and the European political leaders, who are nothing more than, as we know, representatives of the bloodlines and the infamous cabal factions, the usual suspects that many of us are aware of. So very, very important perspective to get on all of that. And that's in the last half hour or so of tonight's 2-hour show. I'm really happy and excited to have a friend of mine, Derek Dunlap, who is really taking charge of his life, a great inspiration, despite such a very hard upbringing. He really has risen from the ashes, as I like to put it, and he's obviously got his own following and listeners. And of course, I'm going to be doing my best to contribute enormous amount of value for his listeners as well tonight. So let's do the usual sound checks with Derek. Now, first of all, Derek, how am I sounding over there?
You're coming through loud and clear. Loud and clear, Lightworker.
Fantastic. That's great. Okay, good. You sound pretty good. Just a little distant, a little on the distance end of things. So if you can bring the mouthpiece a little closer, that'll help. But other than that, you sound fine.
How about now?
Yep, that's a bit better. Derek is based in Detroit, and he's a marketer. He's a coach as well. He's available for bookings as well. And so, Derek, I'll let you speak on behalf of yourself and your audience as well. I'm sure you've prepped them really well by now, but go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience and on my show, and give us your 1 minute bio, if you will.
Sure. Peace and love, soul group on the Lightworkers side. I'm Derek Dunlap, and it's always a pleasure of being here with you guys. My story is going to be very common to a lot of you inhabiting souls on planet Earth at this time. I've started my life over 6 times now, including this year when I dove into this thing that we all know as consciousness, forsaking a lot of the material realms that were offered to me in the Matrix, because I realized I got to the point on my journey that the money and the material things were still not filling that void that I had that was coming from my heart chakra. It was still temporal. And I just got so tired of doing what I hated to do just for money, and still feel the chains and the prison of time. Ever since I was a little child, I had the ability of leaving my body, my physical body, by turning my consciousness to my imagination, which I call my own reality. And as a young child, I was molested from the age of 5 years old up until the age of 12 years old by incubus and succubus, which manifested in the 3-dimensional reality in the form of humans. So my childhood was a very painful childhood, which caused me to really depend on my imagination, this reality that I could go to as a young child, not even understanding what consciousness was at that time. It was my escape, because I could do anything in these realities. And it was just a very painful time. I remember being checked into, as a young child, mental hospitals, because my frequency just did not fit in what we would call the normal, 3 density. I was very shy. I was very confused. My first sexual experience was with a man, and then I found this little attraction to women. So a lot of you have the same type of, I would call, traumas very, very early in life. And I now know that all of these things that happened to me from a young age were, it's kind of hard to put this in English, but what it did was it kind of molded me and tested me and created this light being that I am today, because I call it, it's my journey. It's my journey. And my journey was always to be transparent to all different frequencies. And I'll explain that just a little bit, to be able to sit in between and in all different frequencies and still remain calm or cool or focused, centered in the present moment. Some of you know that by not being swayed to the left or the right, but just to be that free will being that I am, and to, you know, stand on my free will, my choice, you know, not to be placed in the cube, the box that's, you know, being reflected from Saturn and the moon and all of these matrix systems that's been put in place to keep us, you know, enslaved on the prison planet that I call Earth the prison planet, because right. I can escape with my consciousness. So
yeah, wow.
On this journey, I guess you would say the best year of my life was supposed to be 2011. And in this year, I was doing very, very well on the internet, and I was able to generate about $470,000 in revenue. And this would be, you know, hey, wow, this was, you know, for a lot of people, you know, that's a lot of money. That's a great achievement. But at the same time, yeah, I was drinking profusely. I was gambling at the casinos in Detroit. And I mean, I just could not hold the frequency of this money. No one told me about taxes. No one told me a lot of things. So I end up getting audited. All of my accounts got frozen. And you know the story when you don't pay the taxes. So here I am again, losing everything again, starting back over, you know, and that's what basically drove me up the short version of this story. You can go to positivemarketer.com to hear the full detail. But, you know, I tell people all of the time now, do not be afraid to start from a blank sheet of paper, you know, to just start over. If you hate what you're doing, if you're doing something just for money, and you know that it's something else that you're supposed to be doing, then don't be afraid to say, hey, I'll just start over, you know? And that's because there's so many souls that are trapped in systems just for money, And so, that's a very short, you know, version of my story. And I launched the platform. This is a very new but powerful platform. I'm Conscious Now What? And I did that because I knew there were millions of souls that were just like me. And my question was, okay, I'm conscious now. Now what? Now what do I do?
Exactly.
And I just started this platform, and our intent for this platform, ladies and gentlemen, our intent is to raise the level of consciousness one soul at a time. And now we're just over 10,000 souls coming together on a total of 4 different platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. And we really appreciate everyone showing up. We got a bunch of people on our live stream now. And I just urge you to get a pen and a paper and take some notes on this, because what I'm feeling, this is the missing piece that we've all been waiting for from the unknown light warrior. Jim, and I'll give you the opportunity to do the same and introduce yourself to our listeners over here at I'm Conscious Now What?
Yes, okay. That was wonderful introduction there. And, you know, I suppose, sadly, somewhat typical of the kind of struggles and suffering that many of us have had, that many of us have suffered. And it is important to note that darkness does carefully and strategically jump on the brightest lights, or the most threatening lights for that matter. And as far as I'm concerned, Derek, you're no exception to that. You know, there's no doubt about your wonderful energy, and how darkness really doesn't like that kind of energy on the surface of the planet. Okay, it works against its agenda, not for it. And we'll get into more of that shortly. Now, as for me, for most of my life, I was an isolated, introverted, and heavily run by fear. I also had Asperger's, so my ability to integrate into this world, to be a part of it, was damaged. And the ramifications of which put me through intense suffering, loneliness, with a self-esteem that was almost non-existent. And like so many Asperger's sufferers, my head was too much in the other worlds, if you will. And all I would read from the age of 13 was Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov and Orson Scott Card science fiction books. And it wasn't until much later in life I discovered that, you know, the biggest, most dangerous mover and shaker beings who incarnated on this planet were implanted to produce autism to varying degrees, as only one of the many ways of keeping beings like us in check, so to speak. You know, no autism. You know, autism is often caused by vaccines as well, but not always. And of course, like most of us, I was stuck living out, more like repeating past life karmic loops, karmic imprints, vows to others or things, agreements or contracts, traumas and woundings coming up and through me, you know, wreaking havoc every time I tried to make life better, and so on. And we're going to get into that more later in the show, because this is important stuff. And these were the primary reasons why my small business and marketing career wouldn't work out, quote unquote, for several years. And enough was enough. And I dived into personal development, which quickly led me to the non-physical worlds of energy, which we're going to get into a little later, which also practically runs everything here too. You know, what many refer to as spirituality. And thankfully, it was only the second psychic practitioner I hired who was the one who introduced me to the teams. And I'll get into them a little later as well. And it was here that I found out what's truly keeping us all locked down, essentially, to a low and dense way of existence. Now, I invested heavily in weekly training for 7 months straight with this practitioner, where I established my own solid connections with the teams and fully grasped and applied the connecting mechanism to all realms and dimensions beyond the physical realm. And to my mental surprise, I was able to go straight down to soul level events or traumas from past lives. On only the second time, I went up to the teams. And apparently this is very rare for her clientele. Now, this began my long road to healing and clearing that which is not me, to naturally and inevitably, I returned to being more me and the power that entails. And the rest, as I say, is history. And I've done a lot of healings. I've done so many healings on myself, sometimes back to back, one day after the other, during rough periods where a lot was coming up to be cleared, as well as friends from time to time, that I decided to do this for the public. You know, it seemed like a natural, organic progression to go public with this. And now in, let me see, February 2014, I felt the calling, heard the calling actually for some months leading up to February 2014 to come to the US, because the US is the key battleground for the most part. The key battleground, it really is, as Drake Bailey put it, the freedom key to the planet. That's not my words. It's once the United States is liberated, the rest of the planet will inevitably follow or fall back to the life forces. And we're going to get into that a little later as well. So that's my little bio. And I suppose, unless there's any questions, we can go ahead and get into the primary topic for tonight, which again fits in beautifully with the title and purpose and intent of your show, which was I'm conscious, now what? Okay, and which obviously dovetails into what's the most important thing a light worker can do or needs to do for themselves, for yourselves and anyone who's conscious and awake. And then we're going to get into some fundamentals behind the answer to that question. So, Derek.
Yes.
I know where to start. If there's anything you want to add before we dive right into it, feel free to do so.
Okay, sure. I would just start off by saying everyone that's listening to this broadcast around the world, let's all just get centered real fast by taking 3 deep breaths, starting with this first breath now. Let's do this together and get centered. Hold that breath and release. Let's take another deep breath. Hold it. Release. And one more deep breath. Bringing in all of the powerful, positive light energy and blowing out all fear, all doubt, all negative entities. Now we're centered. Now we're connected. And let's just send the vibration of love, whatever that vibration might mean to you or feel like to you. Let's just send out the signal and the vibration of love from our heart chakras right now. Let's send this love out now. I can feel it. I can feel the love coming in. Thank you. Thank you, Soul Group. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for this time to escape the illusion of time. Thank you for this present moment, the true, infinite, immortal space that we're here today that's prepared for us, our soul group, to overcome. Yes, I can feel the love coming in. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, soul beings, immortal beings of light. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brother Don. I can feel you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. The unknown warrior, we're going to
Fantastic.
Give it back to you.
Yep. And we're going to dive right into it. And it's a good idea to do that breathing and calming exercise all together because, as you know, it helps synchronize the energies of all of us who are here in this particular time space listening to this show. And even if you're listening to the recording of this, you're still actually in the same time space of this energetic space that we're all together now. We have to remember that time is simultaneous, not linear. And that's another little detail we'll get into later. And now many, or possibly just some, of your listeners may not have ever considered themselves Lightworkers or associated themselves with that particular title, I suppose. But if you're finding yourself making these profound discoveries, and that's involved with the results from your consciousness raising, and you really care a lot for the planet and humanity. If you've got those two things happening, then there's a fairly good probability that you're a light worker. And of course, one would say, well, you just have to be a decent, ethical, moral enough human to want to be that way, to want to heal and fix the planet. But light workers have a particularly strong urge to heal and help the planet, to the point where willing to set aside the things that we need to do for ourselves. And, you know, in many cases, from personal experience that I've seen, even martyr ourselves for the planet. And that's understandable, because light workers have almost a sole purpose here on this planet, which is to help liberate the planet, help restore it to the light in our various ways. That's based on what we're built for, okay? Because we're all fall into this overall category of wanting to heal the planet and liberate the planet. And we all have our specific roles within that particular main role. And all that's based on what you're built for, and the more specifics, the deeper specifics of what you're here to do. Now, so the best way to start off with is there's two sides, there's two aspects to our role, or your role, in terms of answering, you know, giving that definitive answer to the question, I'm conscious, now what? Okay. And although it ultimately falls down to follow your guidance, and you'll be guided to the right information, the right resource, the right people, and that kind of thing, you first of all have to rebuild or strengthen your connection to your higher self and to your soul, to your I am presence, to all these various higher dimensional aspects of who and what you are. And also, we all want to improve our life situation. But at the same time, we have this strong urge to deal or transmute or clear the negativity of what's going on the planet right now, and to have the biggest impact, the biggest positive impact that on the planet. So let's just break it down to two sides, to two aspects of it, and it's simply summed up with internal and external. Okay, internal being healing, clearing, reactivating yourself, which also enables even quicker raising of your consciousness. And the external is doing things like, you know, planetary grid work, healing the ley line grids. It's participating in global synchronized meditations, which is a critical thing that we all need to be involved with very aggressively whenever they come around on specific times of the month, such as, you know, the new moon, the full moon, solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, particular astrological alignments, you know, and that kind of thing. And that's just the basic of external work. And that's a lot. I'll mention that for now, because that's a whole other radio show. Now, it must be said that the internal and external, you have to sort of do a bit of a dance between the two. Sometimes you do internal work, and other times you do external work. However, internal work comes first. there's an old saying called healer, heal thyself. And it's really important that we follow that. You have to heal yourself. You have to, and follow that guidance on healing yourself. And of course, we're all natural born healers. We all know how to heal and clear ourselves. But because we've had such brutal, rough, jolting experiences for most of us, thousands of years, since Atlantis, and even before then, it's really broken us down. It's really affected our ability to rise up. Now, some of us have been able to do it and do a fair bit in that area by ourselves, but generally, and I'm certainly included in this category, initially at least, you need help. Okay, you need help usually from someone that's on this physical plane, or maybe a non-physical being that is a little further down the road, a little further down the evolutionary road than what you may be. Okay, so that's one thing. In terms of time, focus, energy, and attention, you follow the old 80-20 rule, okay, which any marketer and business person will know all about. Okay, you put 80% of your time, focus, and attention on your internal work. Okay, and 20% of your time and resources and energies on planetary clearing, planetary liberation work, the external. Now, the real trick, I suppose, the ultimate guiding light in terms of doing your internal work is simply this, and that is returning to who and what you really are. That's number one. Okay, especially if you want to transform your life, your current life situation, whether it's relationships, finances, aligning or changing what you do every day to your soul path, aligning that with the soul path. Okay, that involves journeying back to who and what you are. And that's always number one, because it's hard to be happy, it's hard to be fulfilled if you're not you. Again, and needless to say, we're so conditioned and programmed and accustomed to thinking and believing that we are this body, that you are this body, you are this face that you see in the mirror, you are the name that you have, you are the stories that you've had in this lifetime and others, that you're the nurse, you're the accountant, you're the online marketer, you're the factory worker, the janitor, the president of a company. None of that is who you are. And that's the first fundamental to really get. Okay. And like I said, you can't manifest, or let's just say it's very hard to manifest, or very hard to hold on to good things that you manifest, if you don't, first of all, return back to who you are, because things like abundance, love, joy, freedom, connection, beautiful connections with other people, those are very basic, intrinsic aspects of who and what you are. Okay, that's the natural light of your soul and your true identity shining through. And so it's all about returning back to that, the self, the who and what you really are. And if you go to my website, and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see kind of like a diagram, and you'll see it's like a black circle, and on the rim or the edge of the outside of this black circle is what's called the ego self, who and what you think you are, or you've been told that you are by the matrix, right? And in the middle is a small circle, which simply says self, the real you, where your power lies. And in between the edge of that black circle and the small white circle in the middle is things that need to be cleared on your path or on your way back to being who and what you really are, where abundance, happiness, and joy and fulfillment is, let's just say, permanent. It stays there. We've all had our, our times where we were able to achieve something. We were happy for a while, like we met someone new in our life, or we changed a job and it was better, or whatever. Come up with your own, scenario or thing that you've experienced, and you'll notice that the happiness, the joy is brief, it's temporary. Okay, and this is how you make it permanent. So, Derek, before I move on from there, let's just get your input or reaction, or if there's any need to clarify anything or give your perspective on your version of, go ahead and do so, as you're kind of like your representative of your listeners that may want to ask about this or that.
Okay, sure. At this time, my audience, I'm sharing my screen, and we're actually over at returntoyourtruth.com, and we're actually looking at the diagram where self is centered in the middle. And I really, really love this diagram that you've put together. It really gives you a visual of everything that you're saying. And I know that you're going to dive deeper into this along this live stream. But just reiterating on some of the things that you touched on, my journey began when I returned to myself, to who the core essence of who I am. And I say this a lot: I am consciousness. I am pure, intelligent consciousness. And I am grounded now in my consciousness, escaping the hustle and bustle and the survival mode of the root chakra. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So it's very, very important to find time in the busy matrix to go on this intimate, life-changing journey of self, who you truly are, and ground and put your heart, open up your heart and allow your heart to heal and love yourself. It all starts with loving yourself. Right now, we have this artificial, and these are just my words, this artificial, genetically modified frequency of love, which is not love at all. Because this true love that I found has helped me navigate around the astral realms. It's helped me to awaken in my dreams, what they call lucid dreams. And it's helped me to continue this journey because it casts out and it alleviates all fear. When I found out that I was immortal and I never die, this thing that they've been bullying us with called death, really doesn't exist the way we think it really exists. Yeah, the physical body will go back and deteriorate and you'll see it rot out and smell. But the core essence of who we are, this energy, this consciousness, this immortal light being never dies. And when you, ladies and gentlemen, experience that's the journey back to self. I am, to know who you are, to turn that light on and let that light shine from within and illuminate this whole body that we're in. This is where I call the fun and the imagination and the power starts to return. And this is when the miracles, and when we take back the planet, as Jim said earlier, when we get out of non-duality, thinking we're these separate little individuals and separate little situations, and everything is happening to me and poor me and all of these things that we've downloaded and picked up in this realm, this illusion of duality. But in consciousness, we are one in consciousness. And so that's basically all I wanted to add to this. But as I said right now, Unknown Light being, we are now looking live at your graph with the self, real you in the middle right now. That's what we're looking at on your website.
Fantastic. So, yeah, that's a big deal because it sort of sums it all up in a way that engages both hemispheres of the brain, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, because it's in the, you know, the right hemisphere only understands the language of shape, color, form, that kind of thing. And the left hemisphere, it's language, maths, linear understanding of things. And so you got both working together, which is the real reason why that one image is so impactful, and causes a lot and causes that aha moment when people see it. Very big deal. Now, when one's consciousness sparks, comes alive and starts to go up, the things you find out are very enthralling, very exhilarating in a lot of ways. It explains so much. You discover why the planet is the way it is and so forth, why I've suffered in this way repeatedly. Now, when that happens, your frequency starts to go up, okay? High consciousness itself is a higher frequency. Now, when your frequency starts to go up, stuff starts coming out of your system, out of your energy system, okay? Baggage, dense, heavy baggage, because you can't take your baggage with you. We are in an ascension cycle, okay? That's really started 1975, and it's going to complete in 2025. And it's only going to get quicker and more intense as we approach, as we go through this year alone, let alone approach 2020. And 2025, that's going to be the completed transition into 5D. And well before then, probably this year, many are predicting, we're going to see big physical changes, to put it that way. Things really starting to happen on the physical plane. So, I'll digress. As your frequency is rising and stuff starts to come out, because every time your frequency rises, the things, unresolved internal issues within your system from current lifetime or past lifetimes, okay, and the darkness around that, it starts to find your energy system kind of toxic because of as a result of the rising frequency. It's no longer a safe, hospitable home, for whatever's around a given issue that's not cleared yet, and the darkness around it. And it sort of either tries to come out, slip out of the system and be gone for good, but sometimes it hits a block, or it tries to sabotage. It comes to the surface, to your consciousness, to your current waking conscious moment, and it can cause a bit of havoc. You know, you may start to experience negative emotions or weird negative experiences start to occur. There's all sorts of symptoms of stuff, you know, your dense, heavy baggage, which is unresolved issues that are coming out when they start to come out. And like one of my mentors has said, we're all going home. That's the good news. And that's just the fundamental fact. But you can't take your baggage with you. And many of you have perhaps already started on the road to healing and clearing yourself through meditation as a basic tool, through using various kinds of, hiring a practitioner, a psychic surgeon to do energy surgery on you, or things like that. And that's where both the internal darkness and what's called external darkness, and this is things like the archons, for example, that although their numbers are dwindling, you know, occupy the non-physical planes. And we'll get into details about that later. You may start to get a bit of kickback, okay? Because, you know, darkness is not liking this. It doesn't want us to wake up. It doesn't want us to rise up out of the ashes, out of out of unconsciousness. It wants us to stay lost in unconsciousness, constantly chasing our tails and repeating the same things week after lifetime after lifetime, because it literally lives off our emotional suffering. It's energy to it. It's food to it. And so you can get a bit of kickback from the internal darkness that's getting sort of kicked up as a result of your rising frequency, and the external darkness. Now, it's been hard to clear this in terms of timeliness and the extent of clearing and healing that we need in a shorter period of time. It's been difficult to do this, as well as for Gaia as well as for the planet. You know, and it's what's happened is very high levels of light from outside this universe and even above the whole multiverse has intervened. Very late, actually, as late as 1992, based on my previous mentor. They've intervened because the situation has gotten way out of hand here. Okay, to cut another long story short, darkness and the subversion of consciousness has spiraled out of control and started infecting other universes. And so these higher levels of light from way up and beyond the whole multiverse has intervened only in this universe, and they generally do not intervene in any universe. But it's happened because of how out of hand things have gone. And especially on this planet, especially in this quarter of the galaxy, especially on this solar system, and especially on this planet. Now, the good news is things have progressed so far that this planet is now, believe it or not, as grandiose as this may sound, is the last one to be liberated. Okay, and I'm going to put everyone, remind me, Derek, to put everyone onto the resource where I got this sort of intel from. Okay, because I'm going to suggest everyone to subscribe to this particular website.
Will do.
So that's a very big story, made as short and succinct as possible. And we're going to get into slightly more detail. So go ahead, Derek. Any questions or reiterations?
No, you're doing fine. You're doing fine. I have my pen down. I'm taking a lot of notes. I'm taking this in. Just one thing that I know I got an aha moment. Could you just touch a little bit? You don't have to go into a lot of detail, because when you say these beings that came to intervene and I knew it was horrible here on planet Earth, but I did not know that it got to the point where you said not only in our galaxies, but even higher galaxies. To the best of your ability, can you describe and give us, I don't want to say visual, but could you talk about these beings that have come to intervene a little bit more in a little more detail if you can?
Yes, understood. Okay. So I sort of, to keep things easy to understand and simple, I sort of break light beings, whether it's an archangel, angels of alignment, angels of healing, you know, the group of beings that created this universe. Okay, and that's also confirmed from two very reliable different sources, you know, so it's not just channeled information, and so forth. There's two categories, okay? There's what I call intra-universal beings, meaning beings that are from and exist within this universe, okay? Let's just use archangels as an example, because everyone's familiar with them, or most people are familiar with the archangels. Archangel Gabriel, Archangel Michael, Metatron, and ascended masters like Metatron and Saint Germain. Okay, they're what I call intra-universal light beings. Then there's extra-universal light beings, beings that exist outside and above the multiverse. And it's easy, you know, we've all been taught, and it's sort of easy to assume that, you know, there's us, there's all our high dimensional aspects, you know, our I am presence, and the archangels, and then there's source, okay, or consciousness, if you will, infinite consciousness. Now, having that awareness is critical, but we're actually skipping a fair bit, okay? There's actually a fair bit that exists between this universe and everything within it, and all the great beings of light within it, including us, and source, to the point where most of all that is, most beings within all that is, which is outside and above this universe and the multiverse, isn't even aware that physicality exists.
Wow.
And again, those are not my words. Those are not my words either. Okay. That gives you an idea of how much that is out there. Okay, even outside the universe, let alone in this universe and all the dimensions and realms within this universe. That's how much exists within all that is. And so it really is a case of that droplet of water being thrown up by a wave in a vast ocean. It really is a case of that.
Wow.
And the good news is that with the power of your consciousness, you can easily connect to that vastness. You know, you don't have to clinically, logically do a whole lot of homework and try to work all this out. What you've learnt, what I've said so far is enough for now. You know, nothing to obsess over. So that's the clarification in that area. Okay. Now, the critical thing now is to find out and start doing either a daily or weekly practice of the best tools, the best help, both physical and non-physical help, in terms of making the internal work quicker and easier. Okay. Now, the thing to note is the reason why these beings from above the whole multiverse have come to help, and I remember this is the operative word is help. We still have to do the work. It's still up to us. You know, we're the ones, we need to save ourselves, okay? No one's going to do it for us. So that needs to be made clear. But the reason why they've helped is because, let's just say that which is not us, some people like to prefer the euphemism, our partners in contrast. Others call them darkness in its various forms, down to the physical form as well. They've grown so vast, so subverted, so the opposite end of source, and so unaligned with source that it sort of kept on compounding on itself and just kept on going the opposite direction from source. Okay, now most of us, we're heading back towards source. You know, beginning with heading back towards our higher selves, and then I am presence and so forth, eventually leading back to source. But this darkness, it just kept on going the other way, and it was trapping a lot of innocent souls with it, taking it with it. Okay, and it was a case of, okay, enough's enough. This is totally uncool, totally not acceptable. And that amount of, I suppose, power, although we're innately powerful, we still have to journey back to our power. But to begin that journey, we were getting too much interference. Okay, we actually stood little chance. You know, as one example off the top of my head, the Cabal really was in a position where it could start World War III anytime it wanted. It could have easily, done that. But higher level help was brought in to prevent that from happening. And then even higher levels of help, what I'm talking about now, was needed further still because of how vast darkness had become and how powerful it become. And the good news is it really is all being taken care of. That really is the case. And so this is a very positive and empowering and inspirational message. This is not a message of fear. Okay, that's one thing I want to make clear. And a lot of the upheaval that you're seeing in geopolitics, or the vitriol that you're seeing on TV, people, and perhaps in your own experiences, people getting really irritable or flippy or sort of losing it. You know, if you've noticed that, well, that's just darkness fighting back, trying to maintain the status quo, trying to save itself desperately. And so we needed a bit of help to stabilize, first of all, stabilize our situation and stop it from getting any worse. And then secondly, clearing that resistance, both internal and external darkness, ultimately, to start journeying our way back to the power of our soul and the vastness of our I am presence and all our high dimensional aspects of who and what we are. And that's where we just need a bit of help, and have needed a bit of help. So is there anything you want to quickly go over or clarify, Derek, or put things in your own words, perhaps, for your listeners before we move on? Because I want to make this a two-way discussion as well, not just a monologue.
No, I'm liking the flow. I'm going to pass. I think that you are hitting all of the points. I'm going to pass and give it back to you.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'll be doing that, checking in with you from time to time, and of course, interrupt if you need to. especially if you know there's certain things that listeners may need a bit of help with or clarification on. So, where was I? So one of the bullet points, so this sort of answers one of the main bullet points on the our article promoting this show, which is, you know, what do I need to do? How can I rise up and back into my power? And what's the best way to do this? And so what I've been explaining in the past few minutes is to utilize the help that's now available from very high levels of light. Okay, use that. It's like, you know, raising your arm up and asking, asking for help to learn something, for guidance. And if you do nothing else, do that with your higher self. And literally ask your higher self, what's the best way I can clear all these unresolved issues inside me from my past and heal them? What's the easiest way and quickest way to do this with the most flow, ease and grace? How can I clear a lot of these things, these programs, these beliefs, these implants, so much of that which is not me, which is still going on in real time? How do I clear this? And you'll start to get those urges, those guidance. The right ad may appear in front of you that you'll get really curious about. Or, you might be driving past a billboard, or a truck might pull up in front of you and write down those website addresses, or take note of the words in some of those titles on that billboard or truck or what have you, and follow these I suppose breadcrumbs and guidance that your higher self is leaving for you. And now's the point where I want to get into, where it's important for you to know, all of you to know, that a lot of our issues, they exist in layers, okay? And a lot of it is centered around what's called soul fragment, okay? Now, soul fragment is you still in a particular time space, either in this lifetime or past lifetimes, that's still suffering in that particular either trauma, or it might be a non-traumatic issue where you heavily invested your sense of self because indoctrination and programming that went on in that particular lifetime. You heavily invested in the false sense of self based on what you were told is true and not true in a given lifetime. And you're still sort of there, okay, suffering that traumatic or non-traumatic trauma in that period of time. And that's still going on in real time, because time is simultaneous, not linear. And so you're there, and you need to retrieve yourself out of there and back up into your soul, literally. And you have the ability to do that, even as I speak, once you're simply shown how to. You'd be amazed at what you can do when from the physical and travel to another time-space dimension, or time-space place, even if it's within the physical plane or non-physical plane. And I'll get into that a little later. And so you need to pull yourself out of there. Okay, say you're a soldier and you're in the middle of a battle, and you get a spear right through your leg, or you get a horrible whack across the head and you fall down. And the ramifications of that, and that stops you from completing the battle, so to speak. And so if you ever have trouble completing something in this lifetime, that sort of an event in that lifetime can influence, could be a cause to why you can't complete things in this lifetime. Now, this is just a loose example, okay, to give an idea of how events from current and past lifetimes can affect your now current lifetime. So you need to do something called soul fragment retrieval, which is simply you in that state, in that particular time space, in that lifetime, past lifetime, that's still there. You need to raise it up and back to your soul. And the way we do this, so here's a little bit of training, is if you ever get images that keep on coming up of some sort of a traumatized former self suffering a certain way, you need to sort of go there with your consciousness. See yourself there and visualize yourself in that state of pain or false sense of self that you invested yourself into at the time. You need to visualize yourself turning into white light, kind of like a light body, okay? And then raising yourself, literally just visualizing it, raising yourself up out of that situation and back up into your soul, which you can simply have into a big ball of light. Visualize a big ball of light that represents your soul and raise up your tiny soul fragment that's still there, still, being overwhelmed or dealing with all the ins and outs of that particular lifetime and traumatic period. Raise it up into this big ball of light that represents your soul, a visual of your soul. And lo and behold, I've done this literally hundreds of times, and I felt better after I did it during an energy clearing session, and so has clients. Okay, and so that's one example of the kind of thing that needs to be retrieved and then shut down. And bring yourself back into your soul, because right now, certainly most of us, unless you're an ET soul and it's your first incarnation here on this planet, most of us are fragmented, okay, which is one of the main reasons why many of us struggle to make life work, or why certain things repeat themselves. And so we're heavily fragmented. And a handy analogy here is with your computer, how it has a defragmenting software on it, and from time to time, you got to defragment your computer's hard drive. Similar sort of thing. It's hard to be you. It's hard to return to the intrinsic abundance and happiness and fulfillment of who and what you are when you still got all these fragments of yourself scattered all over the place. And if your rational left hemisphere linear mind is struggling right now, just remember, time is simultaneous, not linear. Keep that in mind. It helps. And so if you go to that diagram, that really sums things up fairly well, whilst keeping things simple, you'll see all those things that are sort of a part of or result in past life traumas, current life traumas, and also the other side to things, which is what I call non-traumatic traumas. And non-traumatic traumas is simply the keep things simple, the false sense of self, where our egoic personality, that programmed, conditioned egoic personality that has beliefs that it's took on through its parents and upbringing, that creates the false ego, and we invest ourselves into that identity and the belief systems and ideologies that we're taught, that false sense of self is taught. Now, the reason why that's kind of traumatic is because it's not who you are, it's not in alignment with your soul. It doesn't honor your soul and your soul's identity and your soul's purpose, your true self. Okay? It doesn't really honor that. It dishonors your soul and your soul's purpose and your soul's identity. And that's a form of trauma, if you will, to your soul. And, you know, it's like, imagine, let me think of another example or an analogy. Think of a closeted gay man living, you know, during the last century, and being forced to live a certain way, to being, you know, because of societal expectations and I suppose ultimately indoctrinations, being forced to live a certain way, get married, have kids, even though that's not who he is. And that's hard, that's traumatic, because that's not who he is, to live that kind of a life. You know, and it doesn't honor who he is, at least at the incarnational level anyway. So hopefully with that example, you get an idea, a more concrete, I suppose, 3D idea of how not being you can be traumatic to who you are at the soul level, at the higher self level. And so you ask that question, I want to your higher self and your I am presence, call them both, and literally ask, can you please guide me in a way that I can't miss to the best, most powerful form of help or resource, whether it's physical or non-physical, to help me heal, reactivate, and return to my true self. That's arguably the most important step one can make. Okay, and work with them, and just verbally ask, you know, because your I am presence, for example, is actually omnipresent, which is everywhere at once. And you can access your I am presence, you can speak to it, and it can help you in a way and to the extent where you're able to learn, okay? Because there's just certain things that we need to learn and grasp at the conscious egoic level, okay? And sometimes this is done through experiences. You know, the higher self puts us through certain experiences to really get an important lesson. But if you do a daily or weekly practice of healing and clearing yourself, retrieving those soul fragments, okay, it makes that journey a lot easier, less jarring and jolting, and a lot quicker. Okay, so if you see at that diagram, you see other things such as vows, agreements. Let me go to it myself to give things in the right order. Okay. So what you see there is sort of exists in layers, as I was saying before. And there's literally hundreds of thousands of soul. And for those of us who've been here on this planet for the past 20,000 to 300,000 years, we literally have millions of these soul fragments that need to be retrieved. And what was discovered by various levels of light, both the archangels, our higher selves, as well as these higher, beyond the multiverse light beings, is that there's a lot of these, okay? There's a lot of layers of issues. So I think of all this whole black oval-shaped circle here. Think of all of that within each lifetime, and within each traumatic and non-traumatic issue within each lifetime. Okay, and they all exist in layers. You clear one layer, and the next one comes up to be cleared, and so forth, and it continues on. And because we have so many layers of these, that it was never likely that we were going to be able to clear and heal ourselves enough through our own actions, through our own meditations, through our own communion and work with our higher selves. We were never going to be able to shut down and transmute and clear and retrieve the soul fragments quickly enough to be able to, in time for this ascension cycle, both at the individual level and at Gaia level, because Gaia has her layers of wounding that need to be healed and cleared, okay? Which is a big part of what things like grid work is about. And so, and darkness just had too much of an advantage because of that. Because every time you get a wounding, or not just a wounding, but a vow, agreement, a program, a false belief, whatever it may be, they act as kind of like cracks that darkness can get in through, can get into your energy system and into your consciousness and work through that. Okay, so if that's not cleared and resolved at enough of a deep level, I suppose, within your system, and you, for example, manage to amass a lot of wealth and success, don't be surprised if a year or two later you lose most of that. You weren't able to hold on to it. Well, that's because of those cracks in your energy system, that, i.e. unresolved issues that darkness works through, okay, to bring you back down at a dense frequency where you're, in a not happy situation, i.e. suffering, because that suffering energy, that's what darkness needs to live off, to use. And once again, this is nothing you need to worry about. Not now, because it is being resolved, it is being cleared. Okay, I want to be very clear about that. And so there was just too much there, too many layers of too many current and past life issues and events that we had to work through, and we weren't going to do it in time. So higher levels of light and more light was called into this planet to help with the transmuting, to help us with the transmuting. Okay. And to clear so much, vast layers of darkness, of that which is not us. And so the light, and that's been one of the instrumental key reasons why I was able to make it this far. It wasn't only because of my own discipline or diligence and persistence and so on and so forth. That's a part of it. You need to use that. Okay, that won't do everything for you. But it's also because I enlisted the help of higher levels of light that no level of darkness can compete with. Okay, because we're all familiar with that, eternal struggle between Archangel Michael and Lucifer, pointing swords at each other. Sometimes one winning, sometimes the other winning. Okay, and that wasn't going to get resolved because of how compounded and out of control darkness became in our realm here, especially this quarter of the galaxy. And so and again, like I said, this darkness was spiraling out of control. It was infecting other universes. Whole galaxies have been quarantined. Whole universes have been quarantined.
Wow.
And the good news is they're all clear. They've been transmuted. We're the last ones, believe it or not, as grandiose as that may sound. And again, I'll put you onto a resource where you can do a bit more reading on this. Fascinating stuff. To the point where it's not even, up until recently, it was this solar system, but now this solar system, this quarter of the galaxy, and then was cleared, then this solar system has pretty much been cleared now, only very recently, in recent months, and now it's just this planet. And this planet is the focal point of the final transmutation of darkness, where everything is brought back into alignment with the divine. Okay. And that explains why there's so much upheaval. You see so much upheaval on TV, on YouTube, and whatnot, where it looks like things are getting worse, but really it's just darkness, the last remaining darkness, flailing about, absolutely desperate for its survival. Okay, that's been reflected in the unprecedented levels of vitriol in geopolitics, in politics, for example. And so quite a story that's difficult to fit into an hour and a half or a 2-hour show. But you've gotten a really good gist of what the deal is, arguably the ultimate deal. And the trick now for you, especially if you want to have the biggest impact, the biggest positive impact on planetary liberation and planetary healing, the trick for you is begin that journey back to who and what you really are, just like that closeted gay married man trying to live life in, back in the 1950s, last century sometime. Bit hard to be happy if you, as explained in that example, bit hard to be happy if you're not you. So return back to who and what you really are. Return to your truth. That's why I named my website that. And use and ask your higher self and your I am presence, literally, verbally, to put you onto the best resource or whatever form of help for you to be able to do that in the quickest and easiest way. And then allow them to deliver that. It'll come up, it'll pop up here and there. Okay. I don't want, don't limit yourself in that area. See what's there, see what comes up. Very important thing to do. That's a critical step. And of course, and then follow your guidance. Follow what fascinates you the most, what triggers the most curiosity. or that urge that we feel, that you feel at the heart level many times, or something that's just really appealing, really interesting, very exciting to look into in a very positive, light frequency kind of sense. You know, there's all those various forms of how we're guided. You know, just be wary of all of them. And so that's the crux of it. Utilize the best, make that communication, utilize the best form of help you can use or you can get your hands on. Now, for some of you, it may simply be reconnecting with your own light teams. Okay? You may already have beings, non-physical beings that are connected to other higher levels of beings. You know, I can only speak for myself when I say that the beings, these light beings that I've been speaking about in this session, that's what worked for me. Especially if you're, you know, if you're meant to play a pretty significant role in this particular period of time as it relates to planetary liberation. If you're meant to do certain important things and make important contributions in this particular point in time, especially if it's related to planetary liberation, you're going to get some resistance. Okay, and it's a case of using your inner light, your consciousness, to first of all reconnect the highest aspects of who and what you are, and working with other beings of light, because it's teamwork that's involved here. To again return to your truth and contribute to make sure that your soul purpose and soul path is being honored in this time space, in this period of time. Now, needless to say, if you're receiving the guidance to do so, yes, you can connect with the light teams that I work with, at least as a starting point to get you on your feet. Because energetically speaking, most of us are hobbling with, you know, wounded legs and feet and arms, you know, energy leaking out here and there, infections set in here in all these woundings. You know, it's like as if you've been shot here and there on all your limbs and you're trying to walk. You know, that's the state. That's the kind of state for most of us. I mean, the energetic, you know, metaphorical state of most of us. So call in the medics. Get them to help you, to clean you up, to bandage you up, and heal, so that you can start running again. And to get to that point of running again, back to who and what you really are, it takes help, initially at least. And this help is now available. Okay? Per your guidance. Okay? That's always the caveat, if you will. Per your guidance. And so, let's say you've achieved there. You found the right resource that's allowing you to heal and clear, whatever that resource may be, whatever website or energy practitioner you may be using, whether it's me or someone else, and you're really beginning to run now. And now you'll be able to be in a far better position to transform your current life situation in each area of life. You'll be able to have a bigger impact on planetary liberation and healing the planet, and so forth. That's a natural result or ramification of getting rid of that baggage In other words, retrieving more of those soul fragments, getting rid of, dissolving a lot of those things that you see on that black circle at the bottom of the Return to Your Truth website. Okay. So those are the steps. Okay, those are the critical things. And the best advice, the best sincere advice from my truth to your truth, to where you're at for right now. And certainly listen to the recording of this show. But Derek and I will have the recording. And once again, to emphasize, it's enlisting the help of higher levels of light that can deal with any level of darkness in no time at all. That was that one fundamental difference that did it for me. Now, depending on where you're at, depending on how you were brought up in this lifetime and others, depending on what you need to clear, you may not need that level of help, such high levels of light to rip through such vast amounts of, darkness that's sort of around each unresolved issue in this or past lifetimes. Follow your guidance. Do that critical step about connecting with and asking your higher self, your authentic I am presence to guide you to the right resource or form of help to do what you need to do to realign with your soul path, which is part and parcel and what naturally happens when you return back to who and what you are, the self, the real you. And don't let anything stop you. Make it happen. And we're going to take a short break shortly. And let me see. I've only got 28 minutes left on my time. So Derek, what we'll do now is we're almost out of time for questions, but I'm happy for you to read out a couple, especially if they're common questions, or commonly asked questions. I'm happy to answer them if you're getting anything through the chat box.
Yes. Yes, I got a couple. The first.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll just take a very short break because I need to spend about 15 minutes on the news section. So we'll spend about 10 minutes on questions, 15 minutes on the news section, and I'm going to finish off the last 5 minutes on doing an energy exercise, a very empowering and simple energy exercise for our listeners. It's something that I do at the end of each of my shows for people's empowerment, okay, for people to start discovering what they're actually capable of. Okay, so I'm going to play a 46-second music piece, basically the intro music that you heard at the beginning, while I take a very short drink of water and bathroom break and that kind of thing. And then I'll be right back. I'll be back in about 60 seconds, shortly after the music finishes. And we'll answer a couple of questions, namely common questions, and take them from there. Okay, so I'll be right back, Derek.
Okay.
And
good,
you
sir.
can mute my end if you don't want people to listen to the music. And if you want to say a few things, you can go ahead and mute me, my show, and and unmute in about 50, 60 seconds.
Okay. Peace and love. Peace and love. We'll see you in a few seconds. Yes. Yes.
Sure thing. Be right back, folks.
Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what we want to do at this time is if you have any questions for the unknown light warrior, aka I call him Jim, at this time, please type your questions in the live chat. I am looking at the live chat right now, and I will take some of the common questions. All questions should go into the chat right now. Is anybody out there getting anything out of this spontaneous live stream? I just felt that this would be the missing pieces to the I'm conscious now what puzzle. I mean, it's very, very liberating for me. It explains a lot of what I've been through and the different energy that's coming through and the different strongholds that are just, it's like they're trying to make their last stand. Some of us have been attacked, or what we would seem to be an attack. The energy is changing. So I just got so much energy coming up my spine right now just to hear some of this reassuring information. And I've been downloading a lot of things and writing a lot of things down, for further live streams. This is very, very liberating for me as a soul that's been through so many reincarnations over and over again. And I think Jim is coming back.
Okay, yes, I'm back. Let me just take a bit of water.
All righty.
Okay, this is the unknown light warrior. This is Ground Crew Command, and you're listening to Derek Dunlap from I'm Conscious Now What radio show. We're doing this show concurrently together as a fun little experiment, I guess, that is working out pretty well so far. Now, Derek, let's just quickly do some rapid fire questions. And I can only give about 5 or 10 minutes to it, unfortunately. So go ahead.
Okay. Now, one will be very liberating. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a pen and a piece of paper, please write this down. This is a way that you will be able to get some guidance from your higher self. You told us that, we can speak to our higher self, and I wrote part of it down, and I had to kind of finish the end, and there was a question similar to this. So it went something like this. And could you finish this for me, unknown warrior? It goes like,
I will.
Can you? Okay, so here it is.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll actually do it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you all can write it down.
Okay.
Okay. So, authentic higher self. Authentic I am presence. Connect with me now. I'm calling upon, or I call upon, my authentic higher self and authentic I am presence. Both of you, please be here with me right here, right now. Please show me and bring to me or guide me in a way that I can't miss. The best and most powerful resource and help for me to heal and clear to return back to my truth and who I really am.
Powerful, powerful. Got it. Powerful. That's powerful.
Okay. Now, again, if you're being guided, anyone who listens to this is being guided to, one good way of getting a quick start, if you will, in your healing and clearing and ascension for that matter, to help transform your life and honor your soul purpose and align what you do every day with your soul purpose, which is one sure way, getting happiness and fulfillment. You may want to consider, or at least watch the webinar on something called the 4-phase system. Okay, and that's, you would have seen it, above the fold on the homepage of returntoyourtruth.com. Take a look at that webinar. Okay, it's the second video down on the homepage, and it's a webinar about the 4-phase exponential healing and clearing system. That's a great way to get started because it's actually quite affordable as well. If you opt in to the drop-down light box, you get a coupon code and you can get phase 1 for as little as $40, which is fairly affordable for most, because it's important to make this sort of help as affordable as possible. So that's, again, follow your guidance, but that's something I can recommend because I'm getting good feedback on it. I've been getting very good testimonials on that. And if you finish all 4 phases, you do get an invitation to join something called the Army of Light, which, and we do things like global synchronized meditations, which really has been one of the main instrumental things in literally stopping things like World War III, for example, and I'm not kidding. And it's helped with the planetary liberation process, these global meditations. Very big deal that I'd recommend you sort of be a part of, again, per your guidance, per your soul purpose. Because, from your perspective, that comes first. So that's a good way to start. That's a good way to get started. Because you do work with these high level light beings that I've talked about in these 4 phases. So there's one resource for you already. Okay. and see what else in the coming days your higher self and your higher presence brings to you as well, if anything. Okay. You know, many of you, the 4 phases may be just what you need right now. Some of you, not that. It could be something else. We'll see. So that's, again, you can listen to this recording as well if you didn't have a chance to write this down for whatever reason, especially if you're driving or what have you. So let's do one more question, Derek.
Okay, we're going to take one more question. And the question is, so is there a limit to the dimensions that we can reach right now while this transition of, well, this liberation is being put in place? And for example, when I astral project, I can only go so high, and it just feels like there's a blockage. I can only go so high, and then yeah.
Okay. So that block or blockage is something called the grid. It's referred to as the Archon grid as well. In many cases, there's more than one negative group that has placed grids to sort of hold us here, and that's been cleared. But what you want to do is work with other beings of light. Okay. Connect with other beings of light that are beyond this quarantine, this Archon grid. Okay. And because some aspects of you can get through it. Your lower astral body may not be able to get through it. Okay. But if you use your quote unquote imagination, okay, which is kind of like, it's like junk DNA. It's a misnomer. There's no such thing. Okay, your imagination is a tool. It's a connecting tool. Okay, that your consciousness can use. You know, mainly through visualization and just by intent. You can go, you know, more. Your spiritual body can sort of go outside the quarantine of the earth through the Archon grid and connect with these beings of light. And that's actually what I do in the 4 phases. Okay. We go in a crystal ball and we go up way above, outside the non-physical planes of this planet, outside this universe even. Okay. And that's one reason. Another reason why, you know, I recommend the 4 phases. It's a great way to dip your toes in, if I can put it that way. And so use more powerful aspects of yourself that are still very underutilized, where you can bypass things like this instead of just, you know, just doing astral projection or traveling astrally with your astral body. Okay. Because there's sort of like an electromagnetic fence that stops the astral body from going any further. Right. So that's why I'm saying use your other innate underutilized abilities to go wherever the hell you want. I got you. And the 4 phases helps you with that. Okay. So that's the answer to that question, I guess. And apologies that we're running out of time. But I think that, you know, those 2 answers were the real critical ones to get out there. I am going to be releasing a more detailed version of the black circle, what I call the self chart. I'm going to be releasing that probably by about this weekend, which goes into a bit more detail, which helps people comprehend things even better, because it still keeps things simple. It's going to be 37 minutes long. It's a presentation. Strongly recommend for people to visit this site, you know, in about 3 or 4 days to watch that presentation. Until then, go ahead and watch the webinar, which is the second video down on the homepage. And because chances are everything that you see in that webinar will help honor your soul and your soul purpose and help you align with your soul path, which is, you know, another way of returning back to your soul, returning back to who and what you really are. Now, there was a couple of things I want to mention, and one was there are tools you can use, as in physical technologies that you can use. That does help. You know, you don't want to. You mainly want to rely on your own consciousness to do most of the healing and clearing. But there are some physical tools that that can help make things easier as well. Now, one is the something called tachyon chambers. Okay, tachyon chambers, they emit something called tachyon particles. Tachyon particles, they're like protons, electrons, neutrons, that kind of thing, but they're faster, much higher frequency, and they travel faster than light. And they do a fair bit to heal, you know, your lower bodies, your etheric body, you know, your plasma body, emotional body, mental body, all that kind of thing. And on next week's show, we're going to get into details of that and the locations of where you can find or get to one of these tachyon chambers. And these tachyon chambers, they also help anchor a lot of light into Gaia's grids. So while I'm at it, I'll just mention that there is a grid work project that we're opening for investors, where you invest in the building and implementation of a tachyon chamber, which actually costs a little over $20,000. Okay, you become an investor in that, and you get, and this tachyon chamber in this strategic location on Gaia's grids is used for healing. You know, people pay for sessions and they use it, and that's how you get a return on your investment. Okay, and you can put in as little as $500 to $1,000. You know, if you're one of those who are currently in an affluent enough life situation. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, you know, you already have one resource that you can go to help transmute that. So these tachyon chambers, we're going to build a handful of these tachyon chambers in key locations. And another perk of being an investor is you get lifetime access and use of the tachyon chamber for free. Okay, you don't have to pay to use it. As another incentive and reward for investing in these tachyon chambers. And we're going to get into more details about this in next week's show. And very interesting stuff. And of course, there's something called the Chi machine, which I don't actually have. Well, it actually is up on my website, but it's in the shop. You'll have to go up to where you have, no, it's not even up there at the moment. Anyway, I'm going to make that available. There's a thing called the Chi machine, where it was invented by a Taiwanese, Chinese-Taiwanese physicist who practices Qigong, which some of you may have heard of. And that actually opens up an electromagnetic portal, which brings in positive chi, okay, which in Western terms is positive pranic energy into your non-physical bodies. And at the same time, it corrals out and gets rid of negative chi. And to give you an idea of this, 90% of our so-called negative prana, negative chi, is from past lives. Okay, and it's a little square rectangular contraption where you place it on a part of your body that you want to heal, because it heals physical ailments as well. And there's a pad that you place on your skin and a strap that you strap it around the limb or your head or whatever it is. And a dial, you turn a dial, and that's it. Okay, and these sorts of things, these are two examples of technologies that can help with your healing, clearing, and evolution. But your main tool, ultimately, is your own consciousness and how you apply it through the mechanism of your imagination. It's important for me to emphasize that, because consciousness is king. It ultimately is your consciousness that needs to grow by your application of it. If you let technology to do all the work, it helps, but a lot of the consciousness growth is sort of missed, basically. And so you don't want to fall into the bright, shiny object syndrome of thinking a particular gizmo is going to do it all for you. It doesn't work that way. So the resources are there, folks. Okay, the help is there. Reach out, call out for it. And of course, Ground Crew Command has its own YouTube channel, where I've got past shows that speak about these empowering techniques and technologies in a lot more detail. And, you know, we all have our different approaches. Okay, the trick is to use what you wrote down before and work closely with your higher self and I am presence in taking that next step and working with them. Let me see here, 4 minutes left. What I'm going to do is the news section of, we pretty much ran out of time for the news section, so I'm only going to say this one thing. Many of us are familiar with the public sort of splits between Trump and the European leaders who represent the cabal. And there's been a lot of suspicion that Trump is working for the cabal as well, but which many of us have been saying that's hard to believe, because, you know, through their mainstream corporate cabal media, they're clearly tearing him apart. So how can it be working for the bad guys? Well, I think to realise is, for both good guys and bad guys have their moles, you know, that are posing as the opposite team to infiltrate. And the main thing to realise is a lot of, if you have a particular an agent that's working for you to infiltrate the opposite team, our partners in contrast, to make it completely convincing, most of your own side has to not know about it. So most of the cabal can't know that Trump is working for them, to make it even more convincing. Okay, and sell us into thinking, well, he really is a constitutionalist, for example. But with the whole Trump thing, the thing to know is it all comes down to which faction controls him the most, is able to yield the most influence over him, whether it's the positive constitutionalist or white hat factions, the so-called positive military and in the agencies, or whether it's the cabal negative factions. That's what it comes down to. And that's why doing things like global meditations is critical to be a part of, to help steer things in the right direction for humanity and planetary liberation. Now, Derek, my time's about to run out. And what I'm going to suggest to people is to join in next week, join into your show. We can do this again, or join into, as well as joining into my show. Ground Crew Command is on at 9 p.m. every Wednesday, 9 p.m. EST. And what I might do is, the show's going to end, but I might call into your show just for 5 minutes. Okay, because although the live broadcast, which is now just ends, Blog Talk Radio continues to record, and the extended time and the recording goes live online as well. So first of all, now that the show's ended, I would just want to check to see if you can still hear me.
Loud and clear.
Okay, so the live broadcast on my show has ended, but so this will go into the recording, and of course you're still broadcasting.
That's correct.
Which is good, so we can, I can finish off. So that's the thing. That's I'll leave it at that when it comes to the news portion of my show, which usually goes for 20 to 30 minutes. If people subscribe to my website, you'll get the weekly articles as well, and show reminders, which helps clarify what's really going on in geopolitics, because a lot of unnecessary angst or upset or fear or confusion often results for many people when they see the various stories online about, geopolitics news, and a lot of it's unnecessary if one knows how to sort of read between the lines and look at things from a higher perspective, but look at things several levels deep, and you're able to see what's really going on. And through that perspective and understanding, which is part of what I do each week, people know that, it's all cool. Things are heading in the right direction. So I want to clarify that. What we'll do is, before I do the standard weekly empowering energy exercise, I'm happy to answer one more question that, Derek, you may feel would be a good idea to have answered now. So I'm open to that. If you have anything ready, or if you have another very commonly asked question that you've been noticing in your chat box that you think would be empowering for your listeners to answer.
Okay, here's one. Yeah, here's one that I think is imperative to know. And the question is, what's a good way to physically heal yourself?
Okay. So I'll give you the general answer that applies to 99% of cases, okay? First of all, there's two approaches, especially if it's a real acute problem that's causing you a fair bit of pain. Go ahead and purchase whatever natural remedy, natural supplement or natural remedy that you can use to sort of tone it down, deal with it, get it under control for now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the chi machine is one thing that can help a lot with that. And plus, in many cases, remove the cause of it, the chi machine, which once again, I don't have up on my site, but if you go to the home page and scroll down all the way down to the bottom, you'll see a box just on the right side where you can send in an email to me and inquire about the Chi machine to heal physical pain. If someone's got a real problem they really wanted to lessen the pain of, if it's something really acute. And if worse comes to worse, take painkillers if need be. But take CBD oil, for example, medical marijuana, which I know, Derek, you also sell on your website. Okay. You can do things like that for real acute present problems like that. Now, really the main thing that's important to do is to energetically clear the root cause of that physical pain, because physical pain, 9 times out of 10 at a minimum, is a form of dis-ease, okay, that your lower non-physical bodies, whether it's plasma body, etheric body, mental body, emotional body, has got an injury, okay, or in some cases an implant that your body's fighting against, actually, but generally a wounding. And you'll want to clear that wounding energetically, and that then filters down to the physical and it clears up physically. Let me see here. If I'll give you another example, okay, which a mentor of mine used to use often. So you're walking down the street and someone says, you have a funny nose. And that attack, which is what it is, that the impact of that goes into your mental body initially, and then it drops down into your emotional body, and then from there it drops down into your physical body, your plasma body, and then physical body, and it develops into some sort of an ache, for example. Okay, so that's a kind of simple, easy to understand, universal kind of explanation of what you need to really clear, especially if it's a physical problem that seems to repeat or you've had for quite a while, let alone most of your life. If that's the case, then it's almost certainly an unresolved internal issue, okay, in wounding, soul fragment retrieval that needs to occur. For example, in a past life, you fell off a horse, okay, and you injured your knee. What that means is, without clearing the damage to that and retrieving that soul fragment and clearing the darkness around it, you're not able to clear the karmic imprints, the karmic loops that occur from that event. And lo and behold, you've always had a weak knee in this lifetime. Okay, that's very common, that kind of thing. That's how it happens. So you'll want to, if you haven't been shown how to do it, or haven't access the resource to clear something like that, see a good psychic practitioner, a psychic surgeon, to shut down stuff like that, and ask them, or ask me if you decide to return to your truth. I've always had this physical ailment all my life, or in many cases it only came up recently and it's just causing real problems and doesn't seem to be going away. Can we look into this to just shut down the root cause of it? So that's a very long-winded but comprehensive answer to that question.
Great answer. Great answer.
which I think. So any more questions, there is the inquiry box at the bottom of my homepage. Apologies once again that I sort of have to wrap it up. And again, use the recording of this show to go over things if you need to. Use that exercise, that empowering exercise that you wrote down to really take things to the next level, okay? To clear, heal, to therefore unleash your true power and your natural abundance and take that to the next level, and align with your soul path. Really critical stuff. It's pretty hard to find happiness otherwise. So, anything else you wanted to mention at this point, Derek? Otherwise, I'll get us into a 5-minute energy exercise.
Yes, I just wanted to remind you. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted you to remind us where you got your information from.
Okay. The bulk of my... Yes. Thank you. Now, one resource that I'd strongly recommend, it's called The Portal. That's the name of the website. Now, the website, Derek, I'll Skype you the URL and you can put it on the chat box, okay, for people to click on. We'll spell it out anyway. Let me see. Okay. So I'll Skype that over to you. So the website name or URL is 2012, so 2012 portal, PORTAL.blogspot.com. And the guy behind this website, he's a Pleiadian incarnate, and he's got actual literal physical connections with one of the off-world positive ET races that operate from below the ground, from subterranean, one of the subterranean groups. That's where they operate from, but they're actually from another planet within the solar system. And they're referred to as the Resistance. And I know this guy personally, by the way. I've worked him. We know each other personally. I've worked with him physically, in the physical. So I know he's real. We did a critical activation in the middle pyramid on the Giza Plateau, right on 1 p.m. On the 21st of December, 2012. That whole big 2012 thing. And, with a group of us, and people think that nothing happened in 2012. Well, actually, a lot happened in 2012. And 2012, or December 21st, 2012, that's when things really got kicked off in terms of the final clearing and healing phase of the planet, and to prepare everything for something called the event, which some of you may know as the mass arrests, which people like David Wilcock and Benjamin Fulford have spoken a lot about. So excellent source of intel. He goes into more detail and depth than most, than even David Wilcock and Corey Good. And if you're not following David Wilcock,
or Corey Good yet, if you haven't heard of them yet, which is possible. David Woodcock's site is divinecosmos.com. Corey Good's site is spherebeingalliance.com. And benjaminfulford.net, I can recommend him as well. He's about 90% accurate with what he says. He releases an article every week. So that's a good way to stay up to date. Do you know Benjamin Fulford, Derek, out of curiosity?
No, I don't.
Okay. I'll hand over his let me see here. Benjamin Fulford. Now he's sort of 3D. He doesn't deal with the non-physical aspects, whereas the 2012 portal friend of mine, his name's Cobra, he does deal with the non-physical aspects as well, such as, you know, the clearing of the non-physical planes, the actual technologies and types of entities that are being cleared from the non-physical planes. And all that, to cut a long story short, needs to be cleared first for us to get physical liberation, for the physical plane to be cleared. Okay, which will manifest in the form of things like mass arrests and what have you. And the reconstitution or the reinstatement of the US representative constitutional republic, which we haven't had for quite some time, in case you haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet. So let me see here. I'll send you his URL, which you can put on the chat box. And I can also recommend infowars.com, because that gives you an even broader picture of, they generally mainly just focus on what the cabal is trying to roll out and trying to do to us, or in the process of doing to us, or, you know, manipulate things. And InfoWars, their job is primarily to undermine the cabal's agenda by really exposing it and putting it all over the internet. That's its main purpose. And, you know, Alex Jones, he's had his fair share of critics, but if you actually listen to what he says, you'll see that he's fine. But again, follow your guidance. Follow where you're being guided to and drawn to, and feel drawn to. Okay. So Benjamin Fulford, he's the official spokesman of something called the White Dragon Society. He's originally the East-West Bureau Chief of Forbes magazine until he discovered the cabal back in 2005, 12 years ago. So definitely subscribe to his website. I think he charges $8 a month. I would recommend it, because it gives you a good idea of what's going on, what's really going on. He's got the finger on the pulse fairly well, Benjamin Fulford and Cobra. So now with Cobra, what you may want to do, you know, when you're kicking back and not doing much on a Sunday afternoon or whatever, depending on how you live, you may want to, he posts an article about once a month or once every other week. So you can easily go back a fair way. You know, I'd recommend, he first came online back in 2012, April of 2012. So if you go back to April of 2012 and start reading his article that he would release, again, about once a month or every other week, you'd be able to learn a lot of very interesting stuff and come up to the present time, you know, fairly quickly, in a matter of days or weeks. So, I can recommend you do that. But again, remember, use the 80-20 rule. 80% of your time and focus on healing and clearing yourself so you can return back to your power by returning back to your truth. And 20% of your time and focus is on, the external work, whether it's global synchronized meditation, being a part of those, joining the Army of Light through my website. That's all on the homepage. You can read about, and so forth. Okay, that's what I recommend in my experience. And I've been doing grid work and a lot of external work, especially in the last 3 to 4 years. Now, my internal and clearing work, I started back in 2009 and 2010 especially. And by 2000, and I had done so much of my internal work that by 2014, I found myself doing a lot more external work, the planetary clearing the non-physical planes. Okay, and when you reach that critical mass amount of internal healing and clearing, then you'll find you can devote more time and attention to the planetary healing and clearing. And no, it doesn't have to take you 4 years to, to get to that point. That's part of what the 4-phase healing and clearing system is for, is to clear a lot more of those layers and layers of unresolved issues or interferences a lot quicker, much, much quicker. That's what they're specifically designed for. So, Derek, if popular demand ever occurs, I'm happy to come back onto your show in a couple of weeks' time or a few weeks' time. We'll just play it by ear as far as that's concerned. It was fun doing this show with you. And unless you have anything you want to add, we can do that, spend the last 5 minutes doing that empowering exercise.
Let's jump into it.
So that everyone can go to bed. Okay. So if you're on this call, there's a reasonable probability that you're a light worker, and there's no right or wrong. If you're not a light worker, it doesn't matter. We're all here for our own specific purpose. But many of you would most likely be light workers. And one important ability and the primary role of a light worker is to transmute darkness. So we're going to start off with a very simple, but at the same time profound transmutation ability. Okay, so sit back, relax, and take a deep breath and center yourself. And see yourself kind of like in the Matrix 1 movie where they had that white background everywhere. See yourself from perhaps side view at a distance about 50 yards away or even 100 yards. Again, allow your higher self to be guided here, because really you actually already know this. It just needs to be triggered. That memory needs to be triggered. That ability needs to be kick-started again, the way you just start a car. So see yourself there. And if you're feeling any kind of unease, whether it's an emotional unease or a physical unease, or there's a nagging thought in your head, I'm going to use the term almost imagine there's an entity somewhere in your field doing this. Okay. Now there's a quote actually you'll probably want to write down. Recommend it, but it's easy to remember as well. And it's by that famous Spanish artist from early last century, Pablo Picasso. And his quote was, "Everything that you imagine is real. Everything you imagine is real." So this is one of those little secrets of natural human ability that we have. That your higher self is now encouraging you to start reigniting and start using again and start cultivating and developing again. Okay? Because let's face it, it's your higher self that's guided you to this particular episode. So, but again, I use the term almost imagine because our conditioned, rational, egoic mind has just got too much association and reference points with imagination being this thing that's not real. Okay, so rest assured this is real. Remember, your consciousness is king over so-called reality. But for now, I'll just use the term almost imagine, okay? You can use the term visualize if you prefer, if that works for you better. If your rational mind is able to accept that easier. So visualize yourself there, just everywhere it's white, bright white, and you're there, standing there. And anything that's, whether it's an emotion or whether it's a nagging, incessant negative thought, or whether it's something coming up, that doesn't have you at calm and peace, which just means that you're not alone. Almost imagine an entity somewhere in your field doing that to you, or agitating it or amplifying it when it's cool. You can deal with it tomorrow, no issue, whatever. And you'll normally be pretty, nonchalant about it. Whether it's starting work tomorrow, whatever. And don't worry about whether you think you're seeing it accurately or not, or clearly enough or not. Okay, because your mind is going to present it to you in a way that you can sort of understand it, that based on your reference points. Okay, so it could be whatever shape, and allow this thing to sort of coalesce into a particular form, whatever that form may be. It doesn't matter. Allow it to coalesce to a particular form, and if nothing happens, it's either because there's some sort of a belief system block, or there really is nothing there, which is great. Good for you. But just whatever comes to your mind. Let it appear there, just whatever, just for the heck of it. And let it coalesce into a form. It could be some creature of some sort. It could be an insect-looking thing. It could be just shimmering wave of grey or black matter, such as negative black plasma, for example. I'm just giving you reference points in case you don't have any at all, this sort of thing. And now, quote unquote, visualize that thing going white. Just do it. Just visualize it all of a sudden, white, being transmuted, using your light to transmute it. And once you get bright white, it's now this bright, shiny white thing, whatever form it was it took. know, and watch it disappear. Let it disappear. And now we're going to track back to the source and transmit the source, so it doesn't get replaced. And what I do here is I visualize just way above my head. So visualize way above your head, a sort of shimmering, convulsing ball of light that represents the source of this thing that just got transmuted. See it shimmering as if it's about to burst into light, like a bright, shiny star. And just hold the intent that that is the source. That represents, that visual represents the source. And like you, I'm sure right now, I used to think, but don't you actually have to see this specifically? Search for it, find it, transmute it, for it to work. Not when you use your consciousness in this way. That's how powerful your consciousness is. And now see this, you know, convulsing ball of light turn into a ball of light, like a star. And it's just a smooth stream of light coming out of it like a star. A beautiful, bright star. And you don't, again, it's okay if the image is very faint. That's okay. It still works just as effectively as if you saw the image very vividly. It's your intent, it's your consciousness that really counts. And now watch that bright, shiny ball of light disappear. And this is something that you can do all the time whenever you're not feeling quite right. If you're not at peace, feeling calm, feeling pretty cool, then it just means that you're not alone, generally speaking. And play with this if you're guided to, okay? It's a very powerful exercise. And on next week's show, I'll probably do the I am presence exercise. That helps bring your I am presence closer and closer back into your lower bodies and you drastically improve that connection. So join us for that next week. And this is Ground Crew Command. So, well, this is the unknown light warrior from Ground Crew Command signing off. And Derek, thank you once again.
Yes,
It was a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
It was fun. And the more people, the more your listeners sort of explore the resources that they've discovered today per the guidance of their higher self, I'm sure that'll open up a lot of questions, and I'm sure we can have a lot of fun shows based on that in the near future.
Absolutely.
Okay. And if that does that, and that's something I would look forward to. So go for it, folks. Your higher self has provided you these resources through me, or guided you to Derek and I, for you to stumble over, so to speak, these resources. Make the most of them. Follow your guidance, follow the 80-20 rule, and return back to who and what you really are, which is the only place where your power, freedom, and abundance lies. You know, that slogan at the top of my website is there for a very real and deliberate and critical reason. So thank you, Derek. It was fun. I hope you had fun. And we'll talk real soon, my friend.
Okay, peace and love. Peace and love.
Peace and love indeed. And big hugs to you and your wife from us.
Same to you, my friend. Until
And
next.
stay in touch. All right, brother. Talk soon.
Peace and love, Soul Group. This has been another episode of I'm Conscious Now What. I know that you've got a lot of information. I know a lot of you have taken the time out of your busy schedules to stay up on this spontaneous live stream. We will be doing more of these live streams as I am led. It's way past my bedtime. So I am going to end this live stream right now. I send peace and love your way. And until next time, I love you. Peace and love, Soul Group.